Well, you are listening to Meeting House here on Faith Radio, and it is great to welcome to the program Abby Turner. She is someone who has a website that has become quite popular. It's called A Tabletop Affair, and her Instagram and Pinterest feeds have, well, as we might say, tens of thousands. I know I've been given some figures, but the way that social media works, the followers keep coming. So
They do.
you have that number of followers. You've also written a book. It's a cookbook slash devotional book, if you can say it like that. It's called The Living Table: Recipes and Devotions for Everyday Get-togethers. Abby Turner is joining us today here on the program, and your history on becoming a food blogger and someone who has become a go-to person with respect to the whole realm of cooking. That's something that, well, didn't come in the way that people might expect. I mean, you were not what you would consider to be a professional cook when you started doing all of this food stuff, right?
That's right. And I still feel a little awkward saying that I'm a chef or I'm a cook in the kitchen. I feel more like a friend sharing my favorite recipes. I am not culinary trained. I did not go to school for that. But it's something that I kind of developed a love for over the last 5 or 6 years. And then I just so happened started to put things on Instagram. People wanted the recipes. I was shocked they wanted my recipes. So I created a blog, and then here we are with a cookbook. I am shocked.
So what was the, as we might say, entry level? How is it that you first started preparing a food, cooking and really blogging about it? What stimulated your interest in that?
Yeah. So, I was in college athletics for a long time and I moved around different states. And every time I moved, I'd have to rebuild community. I would have to invite people over. I would have to get involved in different organizations in the community, plug into my local church. And so my last stop was in Birmingham, Alabama, before I kind of shifted careers and came back to Arkansas. And what happened in Birmingham, I was exhausted. I was so tired. I had a job that had more capacity. And so I just did not have time for friends. And I remember calling my mom and saying, I am so lonely. And she said, Abby, invite somebody over and cook a meal. And I was like, Mom, no, I cannot cook. I am not good. I'm going to order Domino's. And she said, Abby, there is something special and something unique that happens when you cook the meal. And I was like, okay, fine. So I made cheesy tortellini. It was so bad. It did not make the cookbook because it was I've never remade that recipe because it's so bad. Tortellini has cheese inside of it. And so it does not need cheese on top of it. It just needs a pesto sauce or an olive oil or marinara. It does not need cheese. So from then on, my friend loved it, even though it was so bad. She was like, can I come back? So then that progressed to, one person turned into 4 people, turned into 8 people. I was having a Bible study at my house for people that were kind of in the same area or the same field, the same industry as me, and were having a hard time building community. So it just kind of flourished from there. I think that at that point, that's when God really started to develop this love of the table, which is why it's called the living table. So it's really, it started just by me wanting to invite people over, this like loneliness, and learning that, you know what, if I make food and bring it to the table, that's that natural conduit to community. So.
Oh, that is powerful. And I wanted to isolate what you were saying as you shared the inspiration that your mom had given to you about something special around the table.
Yeah.
And you, of course, opening up your home and exercising, as we might say, the gift of hospitality, cooking for people. And there is something dynamic. I mean, we think about church life. Well, there is a food element of that. And I think back even in the history of the church where you have the dinner on the grounds and you have fellowship meals and, in the church I grew up in, Wednesday night supper and things like that. So there's something about food and faith that tie in together. And I wanted to have you elaborate on that,
Yeah.
if you would.
Well, if you look at the first church in Acts, it says that they worshiped, they prayed, and they ate together. And I think that that is the foundation to any good community. It is this community that is grounded and founded in worship, putting God first and then loving each other. And I think that if you look at Jesus's ministry, how did he love others? The majority of the time he loved others around a table and around food. And I just love how that kind of thread of being around the table. When Jesus was asked, what's the most important commandment? He said, love the Lord your God and then love your neighbor as yourself. I think that image is directly depicted back in the Old Testament, where God says, okay, you're going to build the Ark of the Covenant in the tabernacle, and then you're going to build the table. He didn't say, go build a pew. He didn't go say, build an altar. He didn't go say, build a chair. He said, no, I want you to love the Lord your God, know the Ark of the Covenant. That is where the Lord is. And then he said, I want to sit with you at the table. And I think that is so beautifully woven throughout scripture, and that Jesus just wants to sit with us at the table. The last night before Jesus was taken to be crucified in Luke, he said, I have eagerly waited to sit with you at this table. I believe that is how God, and that is how God's love story for us begins. It's how he shows himself to us. It's how he has a conversation with us. It's around that table. So throughout the living table, I talk about how we can just put on this mindset, this posture of obedience, clear off that table, share a meal with people, because that's when God's really going to impact us. I mean, how many times have people blessed you through food? Like you said, in church, it's just kind of what we do. I grew up Southern Baptist, and it was all about that casserole, that potluck. And look at the feeding of the 5,000, the first potluck. So I think that food is just, woven throughout scripture. It's woven throughout our lives. And I've often said that I believe that Jesus's love language was probably food.
Oh my goodness. Abby Turner joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio from A Tabletop Affair. You can find her with that handle, if you will, on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, website at tabletopaffair.com, the author of The Living Table, and it is subtitled Recipes and Devotions for Everyday Get-Togethers. And you touched on this earlier. You got this concept of the living table. How did you really derive that name, if you will?
I believe that furniture should never, especially the table, the table should never just be this piece of furniture that just sits there, that holds our bills or our laundry or our kids' soccer shoes. And oftentimes I find myself putting my purse on it, but I believe that through scripture, Jesus has commanded us, scripture has commanded us that hospitality, we should not neglect it. We should hone that discipline, that discipline is what cultivates and creates more meaningful connections and serving and loving others. And so by calling it the living table, it gives it this imagery, this connotation that we need to be using it every single day. And it is alive, and it should be this place of connection, this place of blessing others and serving and loving others. And so, that's why it's the living table, because it's not just a piece of furniture. God's using it every single day. All we have to do is clean it off, set it, and bring people to it, and just let God kind of work.
Well, you talked about moving from place to place during a particular season of your life and having to reestablish community and getting to know people. And so you mentioned coming to Alabama, to Birmingham, and inviting somebody over. And there was some apprehension there on your part, and you were thinking about cooking, and perhaps that wasn't something that you felt particularly comfortable to do. How did you reach a comfort level to perhaps open up your home for someone to come in and to spend time and to dine together?
Yeah, so I really believe that when we open our homes, when we bring people in, we are creating this level of vulnerability. We are opening our hands to serve and to love them. And when we create that level of vulnerability, then they're going to come back and they are going to be just as vulnerable with us. It's almost like intimacy breeds intimacy. And so I love that idea of, and I encourage that idea throughout the book about, look, your house doesn't have to be perfect. Your dishes don't have to be cleaned out of your sink. I have been saying that there's this one question that people ask me when my house looks perfect, when all the pillows are on the couch and when the dishes are out of the sink and when it smells beautiful. There's one question that people ask, and it's always, hey, do you have a coaster? And I think that is just this idea of your house is perfect. I don't want to mess it up. But when dishes are dirty in my sink, when the pillows or my dogs are running crazy, we just put our cups wherever and nobody asks for a coaster. And I think that's that idea of that mindset of your house is too perfect. I don't know that I can come in and be a judgment-free zone. But we really want to start putting on that mindset of, no, I want you to walk into my life, my mess and all, because that's when your community really gets to see the mountains and the valleys. They get to see every part of your life, and they get to in turn serve you. Just like you're bringing them to the table, they get to come back and serve you by walking through the mess with you.
Well, this book, The Living Table, Recipes and Devotions for Everyday Get Together. So you've essentially got two components here, recipes and devotions. And no doubt there are pictures of the dishes that you are giving the recipes for. So tell me about the concept and the structure of this book as you envisioned it.
Yeah, so it was really important to me that these recipes were super easy. They are 30-minute, one pot. There are a couple of recipes that are take a little bit longer. The marshmallow, the beer bread, the sweet potato quiche with spinach and feta in it. But majority of the recipes are really simple. They start with store-bought ingredients, and that was really important to me. I wanted to do something that a cookbook that was ready for any type of skill set. And so I wanted to then make sure that every recipe had a picture, because if you're a novice, like I was once, it was always really helpful to have a picture of the recipe. Then I broke it up by tables that we see throughout scripture: the table that serves, the table that welcomes, the table that celebrates and connects. So every section, each table has a devotion, and those devotions, go back, talk about Paul's mother when she served, when they walked in and Jesus healed her and she immediately started serving. What can we glean from that? And then from the table, I break it into moments. I love the birthday and the anniversary and the holidays, the big events, but I really believe that connection is formed in the everyday get-togethers, in those little moments of life, like the pool party, the backyard barbecue. And so with all of that, that's where these recipes kind of unfold. So you don't have to look through the cookbook and say, do I need to make an appetizer or a dessert for my game night? You just go to the game night section. There are 5 recipes there, and you can serve your community through that. I think that I wanted to give as many directives. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to open up the book and begin to serve their community, because I think especially in a time like we are in, we're all starting to gather again, really flexing that muscle of hosting and community and hospitality. And how do I do this? So it's, the way that the book is laid out gives you all of the tools you need, from moment inspiration to recipe inspiration, and then even thought starters if you want to use those for your get together.
Abby Turner is joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio from A Tabletop Affair. She is the author of The Living Table. That's the name of the book, subtitled Recipes and Devotions for Everyday Get-Togethers. Okay, and I'll not put you on the spot too much, but give us an idea about what you believe perhaps is your, if not your absolute specialty, at least one of your specialties as far as food.
I love sauces. So I think that it is this love of French. I mean, I would love to be Julia Childs. I will never be Julia Childs. Let's just get that out there. But I love sauces. I started working with sauces maybe a couple of years ago. I made an herb dressing. It is on my blog over at tabletopaffair.com. But that herb dressing, I dressed it with some roasted potatoes, and it changed my life. Then I was sold with sauces. So there are a couple of recipes in the cookbook where I really play with some fun sauces and some fun dips. There's a taquito board where you just use frozen taquitos. You don't have to make them, frozen taquitos. And then I give you a couple of fun cilantro avocado dips to dip those taquitos in. So that's kind of, I would say, my specialty.
Well, we are having this conversation in mid to late spring of 2021. Summer's coming, like you say, regathering, is taking place.
That's right.
So what would you recommend perhaps as far as a summer get together for someone?
Okay, get outside. Y'all, I'm in Northwest Arkansas and our weather has been so wonderful over the last couple of weeks. It's raining today, but it's been so wonderful. Get outside. I have some great recipes in the book. I have a cheesecake salad that is super easy. I have some ice cubes that are super tasty. You make them with lemonade and oh my gosh, they are so good. So I have some really great recipes. But what I would love to encourage people with is get outside, take some chairs, take a picnic blanket. We've been doing that for the last couple of months. So get back outside. It's been beautiful. But don't forget to invite people. And I think that is the thing that we've got to flex. And that's the muscle that we've got to retrain ourselves, is that we don't have to do it alone. God doesn't want us to do life alone. He wants us to invite our community. And you'd be amazed at the number of people that come to me and say, Abby, I'm just not good at inviting people, or why would people want to come with me? Or they're probably too busy. No, those are lies that the devil wants to tell you. Those are lies that the enemy wants you to believe. And so in this specific moment, we need to be inviting people. We need to be vulnerable and we need to be open. Just look at how Jesus started his ministry. He asked people to come and follow him. And so I think that, we need to put on that same mindset. We need to put on that same vulnerability and say, no, would you like to come over? If you can't come over today, when's a good day in the next week for you to come over and start to serve others through that community?
Abby, give us an idea about your website. It's a tabletopaffair.com. If people connect with you there, what can they expect?
They can expect a lot of really fun recipes. I do add some devotionals. I pepper the devotionals on the blog with that food, so you can just see a bunch of who I am. I really like to talk to my readers about what I'm going through. I love to, I just wrote a blog on trust and doubt and really how I've been walking through that in my own life. So what I really try to do on Instagram and on my website, if you subscribe to my email list, then I really try to be as authentic and transparent as possible, because I view you as a friend. That my book, I'm not a chef, I'm a friend bringing you the best recipes that I know, the easiest ways to host, and those tips and tricks to bring people into your home. So I really try to weave that authenticity, that transparency through every platform that I'm on.
Excellent. And you're on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, you have the website, and I assume people can find out more information about the Living Table by going to that website as well.
That's right. The Living Table. I'm excited that it's out.
All right. Very good. Abby Turner joining us today here on the Meeting House on Faith Radio. Thank you for taking some time to spend with our listeners today and viewers here on Faith Radio and the Meeting House program. Thank you.
Bye.